Hi everybody, my name is Israel. It's me again. In my last video I showed you a video, I taught you a lesson on how to wrap tefillin in the ancient way that the Yemenite tradition holds. In my next video I would like to show you, or not rather show you, I'm going to teach you a few things about Techelet. Techelet is a biblical blue dye that's spoken about in the V'ahavta and the Shema. That God commands Moses to tell the Israel to put fringes on the corners of our garments, and on that fringe to place in Hebrew a pt. Techelet. In English that usually just translates it as blue, which oftentimes makes a lot of people think that it doesn't matter what color or what animal or whatever it comes from as long as it's blue. However, the first thing to note is that in the Hebrew it says Techelet. Techelet is a specific color, a specific shade, and I'm going to go into a few things about that. Now, the first thing is, why do the rabbis and the Talmud and all these other things insist that Techelet comes from the Chilazon, only the Chilazon and nothing else? Why can't it just be from, get blue from say a plant, or just, from whatever dye we want? And then the other things I'm going to go into is there's two different kinds of Techelet that are readily available here in Israel. I'm going to go towards the one that I support and the one that I wear. There's a common one that's produced by the Hasidim from Radziner that are based out of Bnei Brak here in Israel, where I live. I live in Netanya, but in Bnei Brak they actually have a factory that makes Techelet as per the way that the Rebbe of Radziner had developed. And then there's a Techelet that has been largely, it's produced by a company or an organization, non-profit organization called Techelet, and they have a website called www.techelet.com, spelled Tekhelet. They produce Techelet from a snail called the Murex trunculus. Now, for both Techelets, the main thing is, what actual animal does the thing come from, and why is it that animal that we use? The Rebbe of Radziner, his Techelet, or I should say so-called Techelet, comes from what we know as the common cuttlefish. I think its Latin name or Greek name is Sepia officinalis, something like that. The thing with the Techelet from either of them is it's a big deal, because here in Israel it seems to be very common, especially with Breslever Hasidim, and more common on the streets. You're going to see the kind of Techelet developed by the Radzin Hasidim, but more and more popular. More and more people are starting to learn about Techelet, especially from the Techelet organization. Okay, so first, I'm going to go into a couple things. Why is it that our sages, our rabbis, and the Gemara, and the Talmud in general goes into say that we can only have Techelet that's kosher from the Chilazon, and why any other form or any other source wouldn't be kosher? The first thing I'm going to say is that, for one example, the reason why, what I have written here on my computer screen, I have some notes that I took. So then why are the sages and the rabbis of blessed memory insistent that Techelet wasn't kosher unless it was from the Chilazon? That using Kela Ilan, which is a counterfeit Techelet that was written in the Talmud. It was there were people on the streets back in ancient times that were selling Techelet, the exact color, but from a different source, and they were selling it and posing it as real Techelet, and charging exorbitant prices. But why is it that using a different source, like say Kela Ilan, which has been identified by Rambam as indigo, why can't you use the indigo, the kind of color that they use for Levi's blue jeans? Why does that not fulfill the mitzvah of Techelet? One thing is that Maimonides in the Laws of Tzitzit, I believe, chapter 2, verse 1, says that the reason for only the chilazon being a kosher source of Techelet is that because the dye used must be known to be consistent in its beauty and unchanging. For example, Kla-Ilan/indigo was not permanent and therefore not consistent in its beauty and unchanging. That is why the color indigo from the plant was disqualified as a kosher source for the Techelet. It simply fades, while the Techelet from the chilazon wouldn't fade. So therefore, we come to a certain proposition. What does the Torah actually say? The Torah actually doesn't say anything that you have to use a particular chilazon. It doesn't even say in general. Let's put it this way: because the Torah didn't go into specifics about that it has to be the chilazon. It comes down to one requirement, that it not change in its beauty, that it's consistent, that it doesn't fade over time. In ancient times, there were only two different sources of the color of Techelet. There was the indigo plant, and there was the chilazon. The indigo plant faded while the chilazon didn't. Therefore, the only reason why you could only use the chilazon was because it didn't fade. Now, for example, the Rebbe of Radziner, who proposes the cuttlefish to be the source of Techelet, in one of his books that he wrote, Sefunei Temunei Chol, I'm going to make a quote from that book. Quote, if after searching we would be able to find the blood of any kind of chilazon that would enable us to properly dye the color of Techelet, which would retain its original beauty and would not fade, then certainly we'll be able to fulfill the commandment of Techelet without any doubt. Therefore, he is saying is that it doesn't matter if we can find a different animal or different sea creature or whatever that can produce the color Techelet and does not fade or change and is consistent in its beauty, then it's most definitely kosher for the source of Techelet. Okay, so now that you get to one problem, there's two different kinds of Techelet that are proposed. The Techelet from Radziner, and then the Techelet that Techelet uses from the murex, while Radziner uses it from the cuttlefish. The big differences is this. We'll start with the Rebbe of Radziner, his Techelet, which comes from the cuttlefish. How does he make the dye? Okay, so for a long time, the Rebbe of Radziner took it upon himself to go try and revive this mitzvah, and he is definitely the end-all of all things as far as, going for reference on the subject of Techelet. So essentially, when he went to like Naples, Italy, to like an aquarium there to study and try to find, what sea creatures match the descriptions in the Talmud and the Gemara as to what the chilazon is, and he came to the conclusion that it has to be the cuttlefish, the common cuttlefish, based upon that it does, in fact, fulfill almost a good amount of the descriptions. He only had one problem. He couldn't get the black ink that it secreted to turn blue in a dyeing process. So what did he do? He took the ink to an Italian chemist, and he asked the chemist, how can I get this ink from this creature to turn blue? So the chemist came up with a way to do it. And then there was the first chief rabbi of Israel that was, doing his doctorate, and he wrote a lot of stuff on the subject of Techelet. And he had originally proposed, the first chief rabbi of Israel, I believe his name was Rabbi Herzog, proposed that the Janthina snail was the source of was the chilazon, but proposed that things seemed to tend towards the murex snail. However, so he was curious in investigating the Rebbe of Radziner's Techelet. So what he sent it out to, I think, like chemists in London, the United States, and three different places. I can't remember all of them. And he found out that the dye that the Rebbe of Radziner, that the Radziner Hasidim still make in Bnei Brak, is a synthetic dye, inorganic, called Prussian blue. So in order to, he knew that the Rebbe of Radziner couldn't have been, taking advantage of. He couldn't have been, trying to fool people on purpose. So he decided to correspond with the die makers of Radziner.